example again of the freedom that we have in the Spirit. It used to be in the olden times that the minister was the one, and what the minister said, that was the law. Well, thank goodness those days are pretty much gone in most places. It's been a very nice week for me, and with the baptism in view, I've had to spend a lot of my time just thinking about the place of children in the world. And I had occasion to just sit with the Leonoffs, with Darcy and Joanne and Emma and Molly and Dylan in their home and just get to hang with them a little bit and to see the kind of energy that animates that home. And I'd like you to know that they've got the knack for hospitality down, because each time I showed up at the door, they had fresh baked cookies for me. And we know that hospitality is a key element in the church's life as it seeks its way forward. But thinking about the place of children in the world, I had several images occur in various ways. Early in the week, I heard about the young woman in the Middle Eastern world who had been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. She was only 17 years old, and she had been working already for a good number of years, doing everything in her young power to make a difference, not only for herself, but for girls in the Middle Eastern world, and in a sense for girls all over the place. She had the good fortune of having a dad who encouraged her to study and promoted her interest in education and made it possible for her to grow as a person. You know that this little girl had been shot at one time, and that did nothing to sort of dampen her sense of spirit. She continues on with that work, and she has become an inspiration to many people. And to be recognized by a world body is quite special for us. And the point I'd like to draw out of that is that when we are thinking about the future, and when we are thinking about the place of children in the world, we are well advised to stop thinking in terms of us and them. That is to say, we as white, Caucasian, North American people are not superior in any way to any of the people in the Middle East. We are not better than them. We are not right and they are not wrong. Among them, as among us, as among peoples all over the earth, on all of the continents, there are young minds seeking the way forward and trusting that with the support of their adults, they will be able to work towards a world that will produce happiness and health, not just for some, but for all people everywhere. And the focus there, the motive, if you can think of no other reason for dedicating your life to the message of the gospel, I would encourage you to think of the very young children all over this planet who deserve, at the very least, to have a good life with all of the basic necessities. I said to Barbara during the week, if there is one thing that has impressed me, that the human race is faced with a monumental challenge, and that challenge is best addressed by asking, what can we do to make the world a better place for children? And if the world is a good place for children, then it will be a good place for all the rest of us. And it will also become a good place for all the creatures that inhabit this planet. Now, I also thought a little bit about the fact that the Leonoffs are a family living in rural Manitoba on a small little acreage with some livestock and a life habit, or what I began to think of as a life story, the Leonoff story. And that involves not just Joanne and Darcy and Molly and Emma and Dylan now, but it involves all of those who are part of that story. All the memories that they share of their family homes, of the traditions, for example, of Thanksgiving and other festive seasons. Dylan is born into a story, the story of a family. And that story includes us as a congregation. Today, Dylan was admitted or welcomed as a member or a character in the story that we are telling in this place. And more than that, by baptizing Dylan into our community, we baptize Dylan into a large story, a story that has been going on from the very beginnings, but in a particular way from the days of Abraham and Sarah. Abraham and Sarah were promised a child. And those of you who have some understanding of how theology works, a child is not just a child. A child is a symbol of Abraham, Sarah, you have a future. And for us as persons in the modern world, we do well to recognize that every child born represents the future. And those of you who have been on this planet for a good number of years know that at one point you will return to where you come from. And it is good for those of us who are approaching that horizon event to know that a new generation is coming into place. Now I want to speak a little bit about Mary's song. And that was very fitting that it should be part of our readings for today, because Mary presents us with the image of a young woman ready to bear a child. And hearing this noise, she is overjoyed and she breaks out into a song. And you may remember some of the words that we read together there, but the song is basically about justice, about equity, about a reversing of the tide, so that some who had it all no longer have it all, and some who had nothing at all now have a fair share. And Mary's song, in a very real way, presents us with the gospel in a nutshell. The gospel is a tradition that is rooted in the ancient past and driven by a longing for peace on earth, a longing for well-being for persons and creatures everywhere. And when we baptize a child, as a baptized community, we affirm that we want to participate with all of our available energies and resources in the realization of that vision that Mary expresses in her song, which really is the vision of every mom and dad who have ever conceived a child together. Who would argue that a mom and dad in China, a mom and dad in Africa, a mom and dad in India, a mom and dad in Arabia, who would argue that this mom and dad longs for things to go well with the child? That's a universal hope. And that's a little bit maybe what Brian's text from Corinthians was picking up. It's time to reframe things. The old way of thinking about things doesn't work anymore. Us and them, right and wrong, best and worst. What we want to work towards is equity, a free access on the part of all children to the good that human life makes available. And if we agree in our spirits with the basic sense of the message that God wants justice, God wants peace, God wants every child to be happy and healthy, we might say, oh good, I hope it happens. But the Corinthians text invites us to take a step beyond hope. And that's part of what we celebrate when we baptize a child. We celebrate the fact that we have agreed together to participate with God in making that desirable world available. If not today, then tomorrow. If not tomorrow, perhaps the next day. And Paul, in his epistles, speaks about each and every one of you. There's a talent in you. There's an ability in you. There's a caring spirit in you. There's a helping hand that you're ready to lift up. There's a readiness to go the distance with somebody who's alone and in trouble. Each of you has a part to play in bringing God's goodness into the reality of other people's lives. We are a team trying to move the ball across a line. We want to score a point, and that point is a new way of thinking, a new way of being that leads us towards the great hope. And it's appropriate for us to be thinking these things because it's Thanksgiving. It's easy for us to give thanks for a newborn baby. It's easy to give thanks for the family home and the family relations and the community of support. It's easy to give thanks for the tables that we will visit this afternoon, which are probably going to be well supplied with good things to enjoy. The gifts of creation for the people of God. But it's not enough to simply enjoy. We must determine to take what God has given us, make use of it, employ it, so that the whole world might be blessed. Our cups ought to be running over with readiness to do what we can to make a difference. We are going to sing a song, and it's called Great.